Hey, everybody. Welcome back to what seems like another episode of Minnesota on Fire. It's just the craziness is not stopping there. So on Saturday, we had the ICE officers who shot and killed Alex Preddy. And that's the first video we're going to talk about. But then even last night, there was protesters went to the hotel where the ICE officers are staying, and they broke in and they broke the windows, they broke the sign. There was confrontation between ICE agents and the protesters. And one of the ICE agents, somebody from the crowd threw a brick or something and hit him in the head, and he was bleeding all over and stuff. So no one was shot or anything, but that was pretty intense. So things are really heating up there. There's a lot of turmoil going on. And it's kind of unfortunate because, a lot of this turmoil is really for nothing. Uh, These protesters are losing their lives. They're getting injured. ICE officers are getting injured. And all of this is for no real good reason other than to protect Democrat power. These protesters have been lied to. They've been manipulated. They've been brainwashed into thinking that they're actually standing up for the innocent, the immigrant, the person who just wants a better life. The lady who works in a hotel putting sheets on beds. That's who they're standing up for. And these mean ICE agents like the Gestapo are just so hate filled and so hateful that they just want to kick all these people out of the country because they just hate them because they're white nationalists, even though a lot of them are Black and Hispanic. But this is kind of how the narrative goes and how they brainwash these people. So Minneapolis, it's not surprising that the turmoil is going on there. That's where the BLM riots began with the killing of George Floyd back in 2020. So they've got kind of a history of being off the rails destructive. And they still have all these networks of these radical protesters. They still coordinate this very extremely coordinated effort of these protesters to bring about chaos and disorder and just absolute craziness in Minneapolis. They believe that what they're doing is just and right and honorable and noble. They're being used as pawns by the Democratic elites, by Tim Walz, by Jacob Frey, by Larry Ellison. They're being used. They think that they're on this righteous quest, this crusade for justice. And that's not what any of this is about. It's not what any of it has ever been about. And the leadership knows this because they very specifically put a plan into place to start these sanctuary cities and to pack in democratic states and to pack them full of immigrants, illegal and illegal. The reason they pack them in there is because that gives them more apportionment of congressional power and more electoral seats in the general election. All right. These blue cities are losing population because they're so poorly run. People are moving, the actual US citizens are moving out of them, and they're moving to places like Colorado, Texas, Utah, Idaho, Florida. They're fleeing these blue cities. So the blues, as people, since power here is proportioned on the population of your state, that was a bad thing for the Democrats. They were losing political power because they sucked at running their states so much that they drove people to leave. So the solution, and their blue cities, their blue states, Democrats have less children, so they weren't repopulating their populations, and they were projecting this out, and they saw this slow, steady decline of the power that they were going to wield, and they saw the death of the Democratic Party. Okay, so during Trump's first term, they put together a plan of how to overcome this problem, right? And their solution was to flood the blue cities and blue states with immigrants, legal and illegal. With the ICE stuff, we're obviously talking about illegal immigrants. But both groups of immigrants get counted in the census. So when we do our census, and this was looking forward to 2020, 2030, when we do our census, we count everybody that's in the area. Okay. Doesn't matter if they're immigrants, doesn't matter if they're legal, doesn't matter if they're illegal, doesn't matter if they're in prison. All of these people get counted in your population. And so then when we divvy up proportionally the congressional seats, if you have more population, you get more of them. More people equals more power. Okay, so they know that these immigrants will vote Democrat because they give them a bunch of things in order to bribe them into voting Democrat. And then oftentimes those same immigrants who get bribed by the government, or in Minnesota's case, they get to they build deliberate fraud scams so that the immigrants can get rich. And then they donate back to the campaigns of the Democrats so that they can stay in power perpetually. This is how the game goes. And it's all about Democrats retaining and gaining power. It's projected that if nothing changes, the Democrats would gain around 5 to 7 electoral seats by 2030. Okay. And that they would have around 25 or so congressional seats solely because of immigrants. Okay. So this is a big deal for the Democrats. This is a huge power play. And if this gets taken away by Trump, then they see this as eroding their power. So they're going to fight like hell and do everything they possibly can do to hold on to this power, because this was their plan, and they're pissed off that it's now become discovered. Okay, so then they throw smoke screens out there. They throw alternative theories out there, alternative narratives that, Hitler and Nazi and Gestapo and the ICE officers are just disappearing people and kidnapping them and chopping them into pieces and feeding them to sharks, stupid shit. Obviously, I'm joking with that one. But they get these emotional narratives about, oh, this 5-year-old boy that ICE kidnapped. Because they're just trying to play on the heartstrings of their radical base, because they want this optic to go viral. They want there to be a clash between ICE and the protesters. They want to try to make ICE look as bad as possible. They're trying to bait them into compromising scenarios so that they look bad, so they can hopefully maybe drive them out of their town so they can protect the illegals, because by protecting the illegals, they're protecting their power. So it all goes back to simply one thing, and it has to do with Democrat political power. Okay, so then, but you're not going to be able to convince a bunch of people to go out into 10 degree below zero weather and protest all day long and to break things and to get shot because they believe in it so deeply. You're going to have to whip them up emotionally. Okay, and we already know that a lot of these radical Democrats are already mentally unstable. If you can look at the charts, and it's like 50% of young Democrats, especially women, have mental health issues. All right, so if you play on their emotions and you manipulate them, you can get them mobilized. And they're already kind of primed for this because they just did it not too long ago with the BLM riots. So they're kind of ready. This is why it's happening in Minneapolis. This is why it's so intense in Minneapolis. Not only that, but Walz and Frey have refused to cooperate with ICE. They've refused to cooperate with, to let the police cooperate with ICE. The police do not respond if ICE is in a dangerous situation. They have not given they have not given ICE access to their prisons so that they can just go in there, arrest the illegals who've already been arrested, who are in prison. They could just remove them. Instead, ICE is out here on the streets trying to go and find individuals who are hidden amongst the population because Frey and Walz refuse to allow them access to the prison, which when they go into most other areas, why we don't hear about conflicts is because they are allowed to go into the prisons. The governors and the mayors work together with ICE to coordinate and to help and to support one another. So there is no conflict, there is no turmoil, there's none of this protest, there isn't any of this stuff, because not only that, but those mayors and governors don't whip up their people into a frenzy saying, we need to fight on the streets. Resist. They have this real extreme language that they're pushing that gets, the random person who's crazy out into the streets to fight and think that they're fighting the Nazis. So in the states and the towns that work with ICE, none of this stuff happens. ICE goes into the jails. They get the people who were illegal, who were arrested for committing a crime. They grab them and they deport them. A pretty peaceful process. That is not what's happening in Minneapolis, because or in some other Democrat cities, when they go into like Memphis, have you heard anything negative about Memphis? Boise? They're going into all kinds of towns. They're just not, you just don't hear about it because there isn't the same resistance from the Democratic leadership. If there is Democrat leaders, they tend to work together with them. Here in Minnesota, though, it is a totally different story. And this is 100,000% just about Democrat power and them wanting to increase it using illegals, because they know that their ideas are so out of favor with the American people that they can't get enough votes from actual citizens. And the citizens have been fleeing their states, that they were kind of fucked. And this was their solution, was to bring a bunch of immigrants, legal and illegal, into their cities. This is what the whole thing is about. Trump is trying to strip away their power, to destroy the Democratic Party, to cripple them. And the Democratic Party is fighting like hell so that doesn't happen. That's really what's going on here. This doesn't have anything to do with compassion, doesn't have anything to do with morality, doesn't have anything to do with brown people or white supremacy or anything like that. Those are all just the narratives that the Democrats are trying to distract you with. They're trying to manipulate you emotionally. They're trying to get your natural care and concern for people. They're trying to weaponize that against ICE, as if ICE is just going and getting random people. And this is what some of these political commentators and stuff will say, and it's so stupid. They're like, they're just getting random people off the street and throwing them in the back of their vehicles and driving off, and we are never seen from again. Not true. Not true. Or given, let's say this 5-year-old boy, if you've heard about that, this little 5-year-old boy that the mainstream media and the Democratic influencers were like, ICE is detaining, they're stealing, they're kidnapping 5-year-olds now. And then you look just a little bit into the story, and that's complete bullshit. And this happens over and over again. They didn't go and kidnap and arrest a 5-year-old kid. What happened was they were there to arrest his father. His father ran off and left the boy alone. So an ICE officer stayed there with the boy and its other officers tracked down the father. As that ICE officer was there with that kid, he went up to the house to see if the woman in the house would take possession of the kid and would take care of the kid so that the kid would be safe, because freezing ass cold weather out. Well, she refused to answer the door, even though they told her she was not going to be detained. So the ICE officer was left with this 5-year-old boy. So he entertained him. He played games with him. He took him to McDonald's to get him something to eat. Once they found the father, they brought him back to where the son was and then gave the father the option, which is the law. He could either take his son with him into detainment, or he could place the child with someone of his own choosing that he trusts. The father chose to take the 5-year-old with him to the facility. So ICE took the 5-year-old with the father to the facility. Nothing nefarious going on there. A very kind way of dealing with the situation, actually. But if you would read the headlines from the mainstream media and from all these liberal cranks, you would think that they are just going randomly grabbing preschoolers out of school and taking them into these facilities and throwing them in a dark dungeon somewhere. And see, that's what this all is. This is all just narrative, 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 narrative. It's mythology. It's not intended to be accurate or factual or anything like that. They don't care about factuality. They just care about headlines and how they can whip people up emotionally. That is all. That's all it ever is. Same thing when Renee Good was killed. Oh, they just randomly, oh, she didn't do it. Oh, she's just a mother of a whatever. Well, she tried to run into an officer with her car. It's plain to see. It's the Democrat Party, the Democrats who are behind this and who are stoking this are the Democrat leadership in Minnesota. They are very deliberately doing this. They don't care if people get killed. In fact, it's better for their cause and better for their optics and better for their story and their narrative if people do get killed. That makes ICE look worse, therefore making their narrative better. So they're totally fine with these people putting themselves in harm's way, blocking vehicles, taking handguns to protests, and getting into a scuffle with ICE, right? They're fine with that, and it makes sense that they would be fine with that if you know what their ultimate objective is. They think that the retaining of power by the Democrats is so important that if a couple martyrs have to be sacrificed for the cause, then that's totally worth it. They don't feel sad for these people. They probably feel glad because it's helping their narrative. And of course, they have to do performative outrage. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that this is happening. How did this happen? I had no idea that something like this could possibly happen. And when we tell them to go and disobey law enforcement, stand in their way, try to fight in the streets, right? So they know what they're doing. They know they're intentionally stoking these fires. They know that they're intentionally getting these people all worked up and whipped up into a frenzy. They're doing it intentionally, and they're doing it well. Okay? So, for anyone out there who's not a retard, don't actually block law enforcement, okay? Here's my recommendation. When law enforcement officer tells you something, do it, okay? Don't intentionally try to impede an investigation or what they're trying to do. Don't block their vehicles in the middle of the street. Yeah, this is pretty easy stuff. The kindergartner can understand this kind of stuff. Yeah, don't throw things at cops and you won't get your shit beat out of you. Every normal human being knows this. But when you're all hopped up on liberal goofballs like these people are, you just lose all sense of reason and rationality, right? You become just a soldier doing your job for the cause of the Democratic Party. Now, I bet that these crazy, wacky ass leftist loons who are out here protesting, they probably don't even consider themselves Democrats. They probably call themselves independents, or we're just anarchists or whatever. But everything they're doing is solely for the benefit of the Democratic Party. They're trying to drive ICE out of there through bad media optics. And maybe Trump will bite. I don't know. Maybe Trump will bite because Trump really cares about opinions and opinion polls and appearance and media and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it'll work for them. I don't see it working, but it very well could. But I think that it saddens me that this is what these primarily young people are getting themselves into, and they're getting killed simply for a power play for the Democrats. Those same Democrats who've stolen their taxpayer money, the same Democrats who've run their cities down, who've run their cities into shitholes, who've defrauded their state governments and local governments and all this kind of crap. For those people, to keep them in power. For the people that the American people don't, for the Democratic leaders that the American people don't even like, that believe things that Americans don't even want. But because immigrants and illegals primarily vote more leftist, they're happy to have them, because not only do they give them a greater proportionment of congressional power, and not only do they give them more power in the Electoral College, but they also go and vote. These immigrants, illegals and legals. You're not supposed to. Oh, and everybody's going to say, oh, well, they can't vote. Well, Minnesota has one of the loosest voting laws. You can go and you can just testify, just say that these up to 8 people are registered voters, so they're going to vote. And I'm the witness to those 8 people being eligible voters. That's it. That's all you have to do. They don't check anything. They don't verify anything. You just get a vote. So you think there's not illegals going in there and doing that, knowing that their bread is buttered by the Democrats, siphoning off money and giving it to them? Why would they not want Democrats to stay in power? Of course they would want to. They don't have to work. They get rich doing it. They don't have to do anything. They get housing, they get food, they get transportation, they get lodging, they get everything they need. All at the expense of us, the citizens. So when the Democrats do this stuff and they gerrymander and they bring in these illegals so that they can get more congressional power and more electoral votes, that necessarily degrades the vote of every citizen. It makes my vote worth less because of this game that they're playing. And the Republicans know this. They're on to this game that the Democrats are doing and why they're doing it. It's just these idiots who don't really pay attention and don't really know what's going on politically that they can use as their sheep, as their ground troopers, as their stormtroopers, as their ground force to go in and to just cause havoc. They don't really need to accomplish anything. They just need to get in the way a lot. They need to, and these people are looking for some kind of purpose, looking for something to do because their lives are empty. They don't know what to do. They don't have a purpose. They don't have anything that's meaningful. And so this radical political ideology becomes their meaning and purpose, becomes their religion, becomes the God that they worship. And so you can't have a conversation with these people. You can't reason with them. You can't talk them out of going to these ICE things. You can interview them all day long. They don't know a fucking thing about immigration policy or how the Electoral College works, but they know for sure that these illegal immigrants who've raped people need to stay in our country. It's not like ICE is even going after the nice people or the innocent people. They're literally going and collecting and rounding up people who are here illegally and have criminal records. With this Alex Preddy shooting, ICE was in this neighborhood looking for an illegal alien who had been arrested and had a criminal history of violent abuse. So they're rounding this guy up. This is some guy who beat the shit out of somebody, maybe a girlfriend, maybe a wife, maybe a child. We don't know. But that's the piece of shit that Alex Preddy lost his life for. He was willing to die to protect somebody who beat the shit out of somebody and got arrested for it. See, this isn't the noble cause these people think that they are. This is not the noble cause they think they're fighting for. Of course, that's how it's sold to them. And that makes sense from a democratic perspective. That's how you would have to sell it to them. That, oh, you're a noble, you're a white knight. You're standing up against injustice. You're like this great force in the world. would you go out and get killed to save some illegal who's a rapist stay in the country? Put the So how is that compassion? How is that nobility? How is it noble to stop ICE agents who are trying to arrest people who have raped and murdered and done violence to innocent people? ICE is the ones who are compassionate because they're the ones who are getting those people off the streets so that there's not another victim. Right? It's like these far lefties, they never think about the victims of these illegal criminals. They never think about it. It's never even crossed their mind. They never think, oh, there might be another kid who gets raped if we leave this guy in our town. We don't want another kid to get raped. So we should probably get him off the streets and get him the fuck out of our country. That's a very easy conclusion to come to. But they're so brainwashed and they're so propagandized that they've never even thought about that. They've never thought about, like, well, what did these guys actually do wrong? And should I be protecting these people? Should I be fighting on behalf of keeping terrible gang members who've killed who knows how many people, keeping them in our towns, in our neighborhoods where our kids live? They never ever think about that. And that's what ICE is doing. They're going and getting those people and getting them out. Everyone agrees who's not some crazy ideologue. 95% of Americans agree that that's a good thing. But in Minnesota, because of walls, because of Frey, because even a violent criminal who's raping people is worth keeping in your town so that you can keep democratic power, they don't care about any of that. They don't care about any of the victims. They don't care about anybody, the future victims, the potential victims. They don't care about the people getting shot at these ICE rallies. In fact, they prefer it because it gives them more cachet. And they're not going to stop because they have no other choice. They have no other choice but to fight this. If they just roll over and give up, then there's massive damage to Democrat political power, and they will never win election again. They're so dependent on on immigrants in general, but illegal immigrants as well. They're dependent on them for their power because their ideas, Americans don't like any of their ideas. So they can't get them to stay in their cities or their states, and they can't get them to vote for their stupid ideas. So that's what's really going on here, okay? Don't let these people fool you. Don't let CNN fool you and MSNBC. All these, they're all in on it. They all want Democrats to retain their power because they're all Democrats. Okay, so once you see this, once you see what's really going on here and you understand what's underlying all of this, it makes a lot more sense why Walz will go on TV and just blatantly lie about stuff, or why Jacob Frey will go on TV and just lie about stuff. Because they're so dedicated to keeping this scheme going that they'll say whatever they have to. They will sacrifice as many people as they have to. They'll do anything that they can to make sure that they don't lose their illegals, lose their power. All right. Well, let's get into the video of this. I want to show you this Alex Preddy video. I've got a few different ones here. We'll take a look and we'll see what you think. A lot of controversy about it. Let's start with this. Let's start with this angle. I've got a couple different angles for you. So it's kind of hard to see. It's a little small. But I don't know if you can see my mouse on there. I don't think so. But So you see, this is the ICE vehicle right here. There's ICE officers getting out of this vehicle. A lot of whistles, a lot of blowing their rape whistles. So see it off in the distance there. Okay, so this guy with his arm around this woman, that's Alex Peretti. Okay, he's wearing kind of a dark brown jacket. He's got a ball cap on, and he's wearing sunglasses. So he's pushed the ICE officer there. So the ICE officers, they're telling what they were doing is they were blocking the street. They were standing out in the street, blocking traffic, and the ICE officers told them to move off the street, get out of here, go. They didn't. So the ICE officer went over there and physically pushed them off the side of the street so the traffic could get through. And this Peretti guy, he doesn't like it that he pushed a woman, and so he's trying to get in between the woman and the ICE officer, and he puts his hands on the ICE officer and initiates contact that way. So then ICE officer sprays him, pepper sprays him. He's resisting. And he gets shot there at the end. So we'll run through some of these frames. So, okay, you can see right here, they are going to take him down. He's grabbing onto this woman and he knocks her to the ground too. For some reason, he was like grabbing onto her collar or her hood or something. I don't know why he was holding on to her. Maybe he was trying to help her up and then he just was still holding on to her when he got tackled. But so then the ICE officers swarm him and they're trying to get him under control. He's moving around. They can't get him down flat on his face. This guy here, the guy in the gray, the officer in the gray, if you can see him, he reaches in there and you'll see he comes away with a gun. He apparently disarms Alex Peretti. Okay, you'll see here, as soon as he turns around, right here, see what he's got something in his hand. See that? He's carrying a gun. And there's some other better angles that I will show you, and you'll be able to see it's plainly a gun. And so he takes and he runs off. So in there, you can hear somebody yell gun. This guy grabs it, I think probably out of his back holster or something. He grabs it and he takes off as the agents are still dealing with Alex. And I think that when he takes the gun and he takes off, it accidentally discharges. I think that's what happens. I think like right here as he's walking away, I think the gun discharges. The ICE officers think that it's Peretti who's shooting because he had a gun. They don't know. Maybe he has more than one gun. Maybe he has a couple. Who knows? They have no idea how many guns this guy has. This guy got one. The other ICE officers didn't necessarily even know that guy got the gun. So when they hear the gunshot, they instantly think that Alex is the one shooting. Okay, so the bang, the gun goes off there. Then the ICE officers start shooting. Maybe we don't know. Maybe Peretti was reaching for another gun. Maybe he had two guns. I don't think so, but maybe. So I'm just going to play this in normal speed here, and you kind of listen, see when you hear the first gunshot. Bang, right there. See that? It's like when that officer turns, bang. And these guns apparently are known for, like there's a problem with them or something. Some people have talked about that they do that. They will just like randomly fire. So pretty dangerous. Let's watch it again here. And listen for the gunshot. I'll be quiet. that? Doesn't it seem like it goes off when he turns like that? It sure looks like it. Sure sounds like it to me. So um, yeah. So then he gets shot, and that's the end of it. Probably don't bring a loaded weapon to if you're going to get into a confrontation with law enforcement. Okay. If you're going to stand in the street and try to impede an ICE operation, probably don't bring a gun. Just going to say that. Seems like it should probably be obvious, but apparently not. So that's that one. I've got a few different angles. Here's this one's in slow mo. I'll come back to that. It's kind of painful to watch because it's in slow mo, but there's one from the other side of the street that we'll take a look at. I got it here somewhere. No. Oh, shoot. Where is it? This one's short. That one. No. Well, shoot. Do I not have it in here? Sorry, guys. Oh, here it is. This is the one. So take a look at this one. It's from the other side of the street. Okay, so that's him. That's Alex Peretti standing right there in the green box. Okay. This one doesn't have any audio. So he's blocking traffic. Here comes the ICE officer. So yeah, why is he grabbing her bag like that? That's weird, isn't it? It looks like he's trying to grab something on the ground. Do you see that? Um, Watch his hands. Like he's grabbing something off of the ground right here. There's something. What is that? See that? There's something laying on the ground that he goes down to try to pick up. Right there. Looks like he does. I don't know. Okay, let's take a look at another one here. This one's a pretty good. It's just okay. Now people are saying that he reaches back by his belt here. Right there. You see his hand? He's reaching back. Oh, right there. That's probably where his gun was, and maybe he was not aware that it was gone, or maybe there's another one. He's reaching back for something right there. So I'm thinking maybe the officers think he's grabbing his gun. I think that's what they're thinking. He's grabbing a gun. We already know he has a gun. He's resisting arrest, and we're not going to let this guy get a gun out. So that's then when he gets shot. All right. Here's another one. This is slow-mo. So you see they got something highlight, and on the left-hand side, there's something in his hand. We don't know what it is. It's a little too hard to tell, but you can see, I'll play it on the right-hand side is the full motion. So there he grabs something and he comes back with something in his hand. What is it? We don't know, and how the police officers, this happens in a split second, in no time at all. It's such a quick, okay. He's got something in his left hand too. So, yeah. They shot him 10 times. Are you seriously trying to justify that? Yeah, it was justified. They didn't know if he had another gun. He already had a gun. He brought a gun to a protest and he impeded officers. He fought with them. He resisted arrest. This is pretty straightforward. It's unfortunate. He's trying to protect himself, fool. Well, maybe if you just would obey what the officers say, you don't have to protect yourself. Why would you get into a scuffle? Why would you do this? Well, just lay down. That's it. Stop moving all around and trying to get up and trying to stop fighting these guys. The hell is the matter with you? I'll never understand why people act like this around law enforcement. You see endless videos of people being like this on TV with like local cops or on online or on X or whatever with local cops, and they're just like, they think that they can just like not listen to what they say and just fight with them like these people are authorized by the government to enforce the laws. It's just like, it's wild to me that they keep doing this. Just stop getting so emotionally whipped up and obey the officers. That's it. Nobody will get shot if that's the case. And you're supposed to tell the officers if you're carrying a weapon too. And I don't think he never did that. Instead, he fought with them, resisted arrest on the ground until they noticed he had a gun. They took the gun. He grabbed something else out of his back belt. Don't do that. Normal people are not doing stupid shit like that. Just FYI, everybody, if you see this picture, this has been going viral. It's been all over the place. If you see this picture, it's AI. It's fake. It's somebody's trying to make it look like he's got something in his hand or whatever, but it's a fake picture. Like, this ICE officer doesn't even have a head. Right? And I'm assuming it's to make it look like it was an execution. Because that's what they're executing people on the streets. They're executing people on the streets. Actually, let me make that smaller. I don't like it like this. Okay. So, my advice: obey law enforcement. Tell the law enforcement officers that you have a gun if you're carrying one. Don't try to impede operations. Don't try to block traffic. Don't try to block ICE officers' vehicles. When the ICE officer tells you to move out of the way, move out of the way. When an ICE officer, don't push an ICE officer. When an ICE officer has you on the ground, don't resist. And everything will be fine. This is a not difficult concept, okay? It's not hard to understand how to do these things. We all know that this is how you're supposed to interact with law enforcement. And the people who are trying to act like this wasn't his fault, are just being dishonest. He brought this on himself. You can't create a scenario in which you're going to be harmed and then complain when you get harmed in the scenario that you yourself created. Just like Renee Good creates a scenario in which nothing good can happen and then is surprised when nothing good comes out of it. So here's what Kristi Noem has to say about this. She says that this shit going on in Minneapolis didn't turn violent until they uncovered the fraud in Minneapolis. So then the Democrats had their backs up against the wall. They're like, oh, shit, it's coming down. We've been found out. Everybody knows the government's going to come after us. So we need a distraction. We need to call in our foot soldiers and get them out in the streets, distracting everybody and getting them talking about different stuff. And hopefully a couple people will die in the process. So then that really distracts people. And that's all they're talking about. And they stop focusing on how much money we stole. They think it's up to like $16 billion now that Walz and the Somalis stole. So let's listen to what she has to say.
And I want to switch gears to the other big story that you were right in the middle of. Federal officers have their hands full in Minnesota right now. One officer had his finger bitten clean off by an agitator yesterday.
Yeah. A nice officer's finger got bitten off by one of these psychos out here. Bit off the tip of his finger. There's pictures of it online. I don't have one, but
there's some pretty troubling photos of that online if anybody wants to look. Have you heard from any of the Democratic leadership in Minnesota about that? Tim Walz, Jacob Frey?
No, they haven't expressed any concern for injuries to our officers. And that's been going on for weeks. These are not just agitators anymore. They're violent protests. In fact, the state and the city of Minneapolis abandoned this area in downtown Minneapolis because they couldn't control the situation by the amount of people that have come in just trying to disrupt and impede law enforcement operations. And, you know, frankly, this didn't turn violent until we uncovered the fraud in Minneapolis. We were there. ICE and CBP have been there and operating for years in Minneapolis. We saw the violence start to happen when the fraud became uncovered of the billions of dollars that was stolen from American taxpayers under the leadership of Governor Walz and Mayor Frey.
Yep. It's all fake. It's all fake. It's all just they had to do something. They had to protest. They knew that they have a bunch of unstable, crazy lunatics in Minneapolis, just like the BLM riots. And they put them to work. They said, here we go. Now, a Signal chat, a chat group with this app, Signal Chat, a group has been infiltrated by Cam Higbee, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people in this group, and it's a group of these radical protesters and they talk about their plans and what they're doing and where they're meeting and all this kind of stuff. So it's very organized. Now, the thing that's the most interesting is, well, shit, I forget her name now. What is she? Lieutenant Governor? Ah, crap, I can't remember her name. Anyway, she is the administrator on this Signal Chat. So leadership, she's in Minnesota state leadership. She's in this Signal Chat with all these radical protesters. She's the one feeding them information and telling them what to do. That's how corrupt this whole situation is. That's how corrupt this whole thing is. And it's got Minnesota Democrats are all deeply tied and involved with all of this kind of stuff. And now that their little fraud game has been uncovered, their backs are up against the wall. They're trying to fight. Now they're trying to turn it into some kind of civil rights movement or something. But it's not for noble causes. It's to protect themselves and to protect the Democrats' power. So after the Alex Peretti, this was on Saturday, okay? So the next day, or maybe it was even that night, I think it was Sunday night, though. The next day, the radicals came out to protest ICE. ICE stays in a lot of these ICE officers stay in a specific hotel, and the protesters knew this, so they went to the hotel and they started causing all kinds of problems. They started breaking windows. This is the hotel lobby.
You weak bitch! Let through! Bitch! What are you? Go get him, look at the car! Fuck you! Yeah. Oh yeah! Back up. Oh, back up!
Imagine being so retarded that you go and do something like this in order to protect some illegal rapist. Imagine being so brain dead, so out of touch, so unconcerned about facts or reality or what you're really doing, and you just have this desire to break stuff and act like you're a powerful, tough guy. But you're so propagandized and have such a small brain that you don't even realize that you're causing all this mayhem, risk going to prison, risk getting killed to protect some dude who's not supposed to be here, who's raped a child. That's the person you're protecting. That's who you think that you're being this big tough guy for, because, oh, we don't want the rapists to be deported. Just imagine how little information you must have about what this is all about. Never having thought about it, never having even considered what this, just having one person tell you this is good, and then you just go out there. Okay, all right, this is good. I'll break. That's what these people are like. They don't have brains of their own. They're just foot soldiers who just had taken their orders and, okay, that's it. I guess I'm not supposed to think critically. I'm not supposed to actually examine anything. I'm not supposed to think for myself. And this characterizes the whole Democratic Party now. If you think for yourself, you are out. They have litmus tests and purity tests and all this kind of stuff. So if you even question the standard narratives, you're out. You're on the outs. You're persona non grata to us. Get out. And there are charts. You can look at these. The left, the Democrats, very small-minded, very small number of ideas, and they're all the same. And the Republicans have this broad coalition of people with all kinds of diversity of ideas. Critical thinkers who think for themselves, who make their own decisions, who come to their own conclusions, who conflict with other Republicans who come to their own conclusions. So it's a lot messier because on the Democratic side, they've weeded all those people out. They've said, this is the standard doctrine right here. And if you don't adhere to it, you're out. Like a cult. They have a dogma. They've got their doctrines. And if you don't sign on to all of them, if you question one, then you're not with us. You're either for us or you're against us. If you don't agree with us on everything, then you're out. And so when you get such a closed group like that that is so scared of outside information and so scared of thinking for themselves and so scared of the truth and so scared of actually looking for information and finding out what's true, that and they care about are what the conclusions they've already decided are true, then you're going to get stuff like this. You're going to get brainwashing, just like when people in cults believe the craziest shit. And you're like, how does anyone believe this stupid stuff? And they are dead set. They will die for those stupid beliefs because they build a hedge around their beliefs to keep out any new information. And the insiders are the only ones who can explain things to you and who can have the right beliefs. So they don't even listen to outsiders. They don't even listen to anybody else. They don't even care. They already know that they have the truth and that they'll go to war and they'll die for the truth, when really they're just dying for some illegal rapist. And that's it. And for Democrats to get political power. So there's a few different videos of this confrontation. Here's one. Yeah, this one. So this is an ICE officer coming out of the building. This is after they went in there and they trashed it and they broke the windows and they threw everything. Now they're standing outside and there's a lot of reporters around. And
You press or you press? Get back. Get back. Get back.
watch this. See that person right back there? Right here. See that person? They've got something in their hand. They've got a brick or like a piece of a concrete block or something, and they just throw it, and it hits the ICE officer in the head. So you see that? Here it comes. I don't know what that is. It hits the ICE officer in the head. Later on, he's got blood running down his face. He's got his hands are bloody. And and the person just takes it.
No. You press or you press?
He's asking if that person is press. So these people up close to him are press, and that person's not. So just crazy confrontation after confrontation after confrontation, and it's getting out of hand. Now, if Walz and Fry were actually good leaders, they would come out and they would calm this whole situation down. They would say, whoa, this is getting way out of hand. Our country is better than this. Our state is better than this. We don't need to be killing each other and in each other's throats. Let's just bring it down. Let's let ICE do their thing. They'll leave in a couple weeks, and then we'll go back to doing our thing, right? But he is not capable of doing that. He's so worked up and he's so in a lather, Walz is, that he can't even help himself. He can't help himself but to spur these people on and to incite more aggression against law enforcement, more obstacles, all the things that he should not be helping incite. So it's kind of at what point does this become an insurrection, when the governor is actively encouraging people to fight law enforcement, and not just the governor, but the whole slew of leaders in Minnesota are actively encouraging these radicals to go out there and do this kind of stuff. At what point does that become insurrection? At what point does that become undermining of the federal government? At what point, when does it stop? Where's it going to stop? And I think that people have been calling for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act so that he can bring the military in and settle it down. I've read some good commentary on that, and some people were saying no, he should wait, and there's going to be a specific time and when that's going to actually work, and this would be too soon. I don't know. So a lot of people, though, are calling for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act right now and to bring troops in here. I don't know about that. I think that's maybe. I'm not sure. That sounds a little extreme to me, but maybe that would be the right thing to do. I think he probably will at some point if it continues to be at this kind of level. But at some point, these people have to go back to their jobs, don't they? I mean, at some point, don't they have to go back to their lives? They don't have anything else to do. And a lot of these people are paid to be there. That's one of the things too. So they are at their jobs because it's not a real, genuine protest. It does suck in some people who are ideologues, but then the main people who are driving it are paid to be there and to lead this. And then Walz brings in the National Guard. He just brought in the National Guard. And instead of having the National Guard, be peacekeeping force and try to calm everything down, said what he had them do was handing out food and beverages and refreshments to all the rioters, to all the radicals. They're handing out food and drinks and stuff and helping them. No concern about law and order, no concern about safety of law enforcement or any of those kinds of things, but just wanting to make sure that these radical protesters have enough energy to keep standing in the way of ICE. And maybe another one will get killed sometime. They've actually been trying to get the Black community involved and to get out there and protest. There've been a concerted effort lately in the last week or so to get more Black people in Minneapolis out there. They're trying to appeal to the Black community. They're having press conferences. They're getting some Black people to stand up on stage as somebody gives a press and talks about how this is fighting for our democracy and all this kind of stuff. And you never see Black people at these protests ever. I think that the reason that they're trying to manipulate the Black community into going to these protests is because they actually secretly hope that a Black person will get killed, and that will set the whole thing on fire. And that will be the win. That's the kind of people we're dealing with here. They need the optics. They need something extreme. They need, oh yeah, because they know George Floyd, cops killed a Black guy and boom, everything blew up, and they're wanting to repeat the script. And they're disappointed that there's no Black people at these protests. And I got to say, Black people, stay home. Do not go to these protests. Do not. They're trying to bait you. They're trying to use you once again. Stay at home. No reason to go out here and lose your life for some illegal rapist. So I was talking earlier about that Signal chat group. And so that's where these people are organizing and communicating. It's an encrypted app. And so it got infiltrated by Cam Higbee, a right-wing journalist. And Tim Walz's campaign strategist, Amanda Kohler, also known by codename HAH, and the admin of the Minnesota ICE Watch Signal chat group. He's a leader and organizer behind the protests across Minnesota against ICE deporting murderers, rapists, pedophiles, child pornographers from American cities. So Kristi Noem has something to say about this.
I was just going through some of the folks that we've pulled off the streets to deport out of this country.
These are the people that they're
focus on.
Okay. Yeah, this is good. These are the people that these people are defending. These are the people that they're out there in 10 degree below zero weather and getting shot and getting kicked and getting pushed down and getting hit by cars and whatever. These are the kinds of people that they're protecting. This is why they're doing it, is so that these people that she's going to talk about right here can stay in our country and hopefully do more damage to it.
America safe again. Here we have a guy named Gonzalez, who's been convicted of sodomy of children less than 13 years of age. He has been sentenced to prison, but he is out of our country now, thanks to President Trump. Another guy here who is arrested and has been removed, but he was convicted for possession of distributing child porn. So this guy was distributing that throughout the country, illegal alien, gone from our country now. Here we have a Chinese national convicted of murder, now is gone, a citizen of China that came here and was convicted of killing people in this country that are gone thanks to President Trump. Thank you to all the brave men and women that are out there deporting these illegal criminals. They get up every day to do it and are making our communities safer.
Yeah. See, the problem is that Democrats don't care about crime. It's been a long time since they've cared about crime. That's why their cities are crime riddled. That's why they let criminals out who've got 40 different arrests. They just let them back out onto the streets because they don't care about crime. It's not a big concern to them. It's not an issue. They think that people aren't criminals, that it's the society in which they grow up that makes them the criminals, so they're not responsible. So how are we deporting illegal people who are criminals? Because surely the only reason that they were criminals, first of all, nobody's illegal. And second of all, the only reason they are committing these crimes is because somehow the white supremacy made them do it, or their society in which they grew up, or they grew up in poverty. So it forced them to sodomize a child. Because that's how this works. No, it's so stupid. These right here are the people that these morons are losing their lives for. You're going to go out there and lose your life for somebody who sodomizes a kid? You're going to go out there and lose your life for somebody who's a murderer? Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. So if you like the video, and like and subscribe, comment on the video, share it with people. If you subscribe, then you'll get notified every time I go live, and we can have conversations throughout the week if you want to comment on the videos. So I really appreciate that. So there's this. Here's the latest. This happened today. I believe it was this morning. Could have been last night. I believe it was this morning, though. This is of a protester who, turns out, picked up a flashbang to throw it back out at the ICE officers, and it went off in her hand. So these are the kinds of geniuses they've got out here protesting. This is their cream of the crop, people. This right here tells you everything about the intellectual prowess of these protesters. They're so fucking stupid that they're going to pick up a flashbang and try to throw it back at ICE officers. Do you know how retarded that is? But of course, she's going to be the victim. She's going to be the victim of this, because how dare they throw a flashbang, then force her to pick it up like a retard and throw it back at them. So let's take a look at this. You can't see, it's really hard to see her up there. She's way up there in the front, in the foreground there. So there she comes.
Medic.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Flopping around.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm sure that would hurt like hell. So of course she's flopping around. Obviously that's would be extremely painful. But it's just like she's calling for medic. Medic! Medic! Like they're in some kind of war zone. Send the medic out to the battlefield. Maybe they're that well organized. Maybe they're so well organized that they do have medics at each one of these. That would be, I wouldn't be surprised, because this group, they like know where to be and what time to be there. They know how to, like, there's a lot of coordination that goes on here. It's not just a bunch of random people who just accidentally happen to come out because they read about it on the news or something. This is like a concerted effort to get all these people, and they know each other. They're in groups together. It's a whole organized thing they have going on here. So she's yelling, "Medic, medic, medic." I don't know if it said that
Medic.
Oh my God.
she might have blown off part of her
Oh my
finger.
God. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
But see, this is how out of touch these people are. They think that they're going to go here and they're going to do this crazy shit and they're not going to get injured. Like, they've lived such pampered, sheltered lives that they don't even realize the kind of danger that they're putting themselves in. They don't realize the seriousness of these situations. They just think it's like a video game or something. They're just going to go out there and they're going to have a fun time and they're going to protest and they're going to punch people in the face and spit on them and throw bricks at them, and then then we're going to be done. They're out of touch with reality because they haven't really experienced real life. They've lived sheltered lives. They haven't encountered violence. They don't know how dangerous it is and how terrifying it is. So they don't have the proper emotional orientation towards these kinds of scenarios. And then they're surprised when violence happens. Does that make any sense to anybody? Any normal person out there? Anyway, this is an interview here, and this basically sums up how these crazy lefties think, which means not think. They don't even know what they believe. They don't know why they're there. They don't know what's going on. They don't have a clear, it's like they've never thought for a day in their life. It's a lot like when you run into some kind of a religious fundamentalist, and you're like, tell me more about this. They don't know anything. They just know how to repeat the lines that they've been told their whole lives, and that's what they do. They didn't come to these conclusions independently. They didn't come to their conclusions through a long train of thought and hard intellectual battles or reading books or talking to people and debating people or any of that kind of stuff. They don't come to any of their conclusions like that. They come to them based on their emotions and based on their peer group. That's it. So if this is what my friends are doing, then this is what I'm doing. If this is what I feel like my in-group is telling me to do, then that's what I'll do. Not because it's the right thing to do, not because it's something that I believe in, not because I've thought about it and I've considered the alternatives and I've weighed this against that and I've come to the conclusion that this is what this is and this is why I'm doing it and this is where I'm going and this is what's happening here. They don't come to any conclusions that way. It's emotions-based logic, which means not logic. It's all emotional. It's all the Democratic Party and the left preys on your compassion and your empathy and your sympathy for other human beings, a natural biological built-in part of us. Just like marketers will appeal to your base instincts, desire for sex, things like that, and they'll use that to sell you a shit product. Okay? Because they know they can trigger those instincts by showing you a Whopper or Big Mac on this screen and it just looks juicy and delicious and it makes you hungry and now you got to go buy one, right? The same way they manipulate you that way. And because a lot of those, the media, they've manipulated for so long with marketing and with their news and all these kinds of things, they're master manipulators. And so they use empathy, compassion, and sympathy, care for people, and not wanting people to be harmed, that kind of thing. They use that as a weapon against these foot soldiers to get people into the cause. That's why they manufacture stories about a 5-year-old who's being detained by ICE. When a 5-year-old is not being detained by ICE, what happened was his dad was being arrested and his dad ran off and left his kid. So once they arrested the dad and they got him back with the son, They asked the dad if he wanted the son to come along to be detained in the facility with him, or if he wanted to place the child with someone that that was safe of the dad's choosing. The dad chose to have the kid come along with him. That's it. ICE didn't arrest a preschooler from the, drop-off lane. Or they'll say, oh, they've arrested 3 children, a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. How inhumane and cruel is that? That's how these people lie and manipulate. So this guy here, he's not going to go and actually look into the story and see what's actual story about this 5-year-old. He's just going to be like, yep, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. There's no limit that these people won't go to. There's no limit ICE won't go to. They're stealing kids off the streets, probably, probably dumped his body into a foundation of concrete or something. Like, none of this is reality. But they don't even take the small amount of time it would take to look into these stories and get more details. They don't even consider doing that. They don't even think about it. They just take the information and they're like, okay, facts. Now go fight ICE because we have to protect 5-year-old kids from them. And hey, I would be on their side if that was true. If they really were like the Gestapo, coming into random people's houses and taking children and locking them away and all that kind of stuff, then I would be on their side. It's just that the facts are not on their side. And anybody who you just have to barely scratch beneath the surface. Barely scratch beneath the surface of these manipulated media stories by the left. You just barely look underneath it and the whole story falls apart because you're like, oh. They'll put something like, Renee Good gunned down in the street by ICE officers. And you're like, whoa, that's not good. You can't just be gunning people down in the streets. Obviously, none of us want that to happen. And then you look into it and you see that she disobeyed. She's blocking an ICE investigation. She runs her car into an ICE officer. And the story makes a lot more sense then. Then you just walk up to some random lady and shoot her in the head. She put herself in this situation being a dumbass. Okay, but they won't even look into that. They didn't. No, it's just, yeah, of course ICE gunned down a woman in the street with a child. Of course they did. That's what they do. Even though ICE isn't doing anything differently than what they did under Biden, nothing different than what they did under Trump in his first term, nothing different than what they did under Obama. Same policies, procedures, same methodology, same everything, even same leader with Tom Homan. Kristi Noem is new, but with Tom Homan, Trump or Obama gave him a medal for how exceptional his job was at deporting illegals. He's still doing the same thing. He's still running these operations the same way. He still has the same policies, same procedures. So nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is that the Democrats have figured out a way to use these illegals as ways to gain political power. That's what changed. It either changed under Trump's first term or very early in Biden's second term, in Biden's term. It started either one of those. It probably started somewhere like 2018 to 2020 and somebody came up with this plan. They knew that they were losing population in their states. They knew that they were going to lose power as a result. So they had to figure out some way to boost the population in their states so they could get more political power. So they brought in a bunch of people from third world countries who are most likely going to vote for Democrats as well. If they could get something like amnesty, then they would have a bunch more voting bloc. But even apart from that, they were voting illegally in our elections. But they also then got, just by the sheer amount of people being in their states, they got more political power because they got more congressional seats as a result, because they're apportioned based on population, and they got more electoral college votes because those are apportioned based on the population of your state. So they artificially gerrymandered their way into retaining power and to gaining power that was quickly and rapidly slipping out of their hands. And Trump getting elected the first time put these people into a frenzy to figure out some way to get back into power. They were so blown away by the fact that Trump got elected that it put them into hyperdrive trying to figure out ways, and they didn't care if it was legal, illegal, whatever it takes to get their power back. Then Biden gets elected and they flood the country with all these illegals, a large portion of whom go into blue states. That's why they're fighting to protect them. That's why the whole leadership in the Democrat Party and in Democratic states like Minneapolis and soon to come, probably California, that's why they're fighting like hell to keep ICE out of there, to keep them from taking away their power. And their power is concentrated in illegal immigrants right now. And that's the key to it. And that's why Trump is so dedicated to getting these illegals out of these states, because it will cripple the Democratic Party. So anyway, let's look at this interview here of a liberal loon who's at these ICE protests, and she's going to ask him to explain a little bit more. Her name's Caitlin Beckett. She does this a lot, and they're always pretty entertaining.
Why are you getting so angry?
Because the country being run by fucking criminal and no.
This is so good. I forgot. I haven't seen this clip for a while. Look at how emotionally unstable. Like, this guy his emotions are not under his control. This is the kind of people that the Democrats target, because this guy's unstable. He lacks self-control. He lacks emotional stability. So you're going to be able to, it's not going to take much to convince somebody like that with an emotional argument to go and do something for you. Oh, they're stealing kids. What? They're stealing kids. Oh, I can kill them. All right. So you can see he's already out of control. He's falling right into the stereotype.
Nobody's doing anything, and people like you are defending actions of terrorists.
And people like you are defending these pedophiles being in Minnesota by wanting to abolish ICE and get them out of
I'm
there.
not defending those fucking pedophiles. If you're trying to argue that we need to get rid of these people, that these are fucking pedophiles, then get the fucking pedophiles in the White House out now.
Those are pedophiles.
Okay.
And so when you want ICE out of Minnesota or Minneapolis, this is who you're protecting.
Exactly.
No, I am not trying to protect those people.
I'm not trying to protect those people. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do, dipshit. That's what you are doing. Plain and simple. That's exactly what you're doing, because those are exactly the people that ICE is arresting. It's simple. It's cut and dry. They want to act like they're protecting just like this random Hispanic person who nobody knows of, and that has, like, that's who they think they're protecting, and they're not. They're protecting evil people.
Protecting the actual people who had not had any previous criminal charges against them being deported. Sure, maybe those people have been convicted.
See, this is what I'm talking about. They think that ICE is there just picking up random people who have no criminal history or anything. And this guy thinks he's standing up for it and he's stopping it, because he doesn't have any fucking clue what's actually happening. And he's probably on these leftist discords and Blue Sky and all these crazy places where they just make shit up constantly and create a narrative so that they can get idiots like this out into the streets to stop it, so that they can keep their power.
Maybe they should get out. But
How do they get out, though?
I mean, get out.
But how does that happen without ICE?
Find some other organization not hiring criminals.
There isn't. There is no lawful organization that can remove somebody that's here illegally and committed crimes. They can't do it.
You know what that's called? That's called the fucking police.
The local police does not, they don't deport people. ICE does.
It's just
Like, oh God, oh, this hurts my head. This is too much like thinking and reason and being normal thoughts, common sense, and knowing stuff. Oh, but I really want I really want the thing that I want to be true. So I'm just going to disregard all the facts that you just gave me. And I'm going to say, nope. You just can't handle it. You can't handle the facts. Oh, liberals are allergic to facts. Democrats have willingly become propagandists and fact haters.
Okay, well, here's the thing, though. Say that, they want to get these criminal, or they want to, like, convict the criminal, get them out, all right? You want to know an easy way to know if someone been convicted, an easy way to get criminals? Go to the fucking jail cell.
Actually, that's smart. That is a good way to do it. And that is what they should do. Oh, wait. Jacob Frey and Tim Walz won't let them do that. That's what ICE wanted to do. They wanted to go into the jail and grab the people who are illegals, who have been arrested and are in the jail, and they wanted to take them and deport them like they do all across the country and have been for 20 years. It's very common. Every county jail does it. So this guy thinks that this is some see, ICE is doing it wrong. What they should do would be much easier, would be to just go to the jails and get the criminals instead of going around door to door and grabbing people up off the streets. And everybody agrees. Yeah, maybe you should tell that to your mayor. Tell that to your local sheriff. Tell them to stop blocking ICE from doing that. And ICE wouldn't even be on your streets.
Get the people that have already been convicted, get them out, not random people on the fucking streets.
Okay, so again, we're just going to talk calmly here.
Again, you hear him? Random people on the streets. He thinks that that's who ICE is targeting. Random, totally random. They don't know anything about these people. They just scan, they look, they're like, look, random person, number 1, get them. Brown skin, get them. Never even a concern to look into whether that's actually the case. No concern, no interest in looking into it and seeing, oh, is that really what they're doing? No, they're not. Sometimes people get swept up in raids who are in the same location or in the same apartment or business as the illegal. And so ICE takes them and detains them and processes them, makes sure that they're legal and all that kind of stuff, and then lets them go. Because they don't know who the people are, and they're there with an illegal alien who's committed crimes. They're not just going up to random person walking down the street, me or you walking down the street, minding my own business. ICE officer jumps out of his car, he puts his gun at me, and he says, I hate you. You better get in my car or I'm going to shoot you dead right here. That's what these people think's going on. Fucking batshit crazy.
These people are pedophiles and they are criminals. Give me 1 second before your impulse tells you to interrupt me, okay? 1 second. If you don't want ICE going around, if you don't want them to exist, if you want them abolished, these people would still be in our streets. These people would still be going out and raping children. There is no one that could deport them. They don't have the agency to do that. And I think it's dangerous to start telling local law enforcement that they can go and start deporting people. ICE has the power under Title 8 to do this. So tell me, how do we remove these people if we abolish ICE?
Simple. Just lock them up for crimes that they've committed. If they committed crimes, they should be jailed. Just not even, just ignore the deportation process. And the fact that you're trying to.
But these are federal crimes. These are federal crimes that are handled by the federal government because they are illegal.
What is a federal? How is it a federal crime to be protesting? Why did a mother have to get shot in the face 3 times?
We can talk about that after you tell me how on earth we are going to get these people out without ICE. Local law enforcement, and you want to talk about constitutional and it being legal?
I'm well aware. She's a hack.
Why are you getting so angry?
Because the country being run by fucking criminals and nobody's doing anything. And people like you are defending actions of fucking terrorists.
See, nothing she said even stuck in that that little peanut-sized brain of his. He's just emotional. He's just I'm just gonna whatever comes to mind. I'm just gonna I'm all worked up. I'm all worked up. I can't think. I don't want to know facts. I don't want to know truth. I don't want to know anything. I'm just criminals. They're criminals doing criminal bad things and taking people off the streets random. Right? There's no sense in really even talking to these people because there's absolutely nothing you can say to them. She just gave him a whole bunch of factual information. She's calm. Normal people understand what she says. And they're like, yeah, an illegal criminal, an illegal who commits crime. Yeah, sure. Nobody's opposed to deporting that guy. That's great. Get him out of here. We don't want him committing more crime in our country. But this guy can't even hear or follow along or understand what she's even talking about. He just goes instantly into another rant about criminals doing our thing and hurting people and shooting people and all this kind of stuff.
And people like you are defending these pedophiles being.
And he refuses to acknowledge the fact that he is defending these people. Those are the people that all these protesters are defending. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want it to be mentioned. They don't want to be called out on it. So they just ignore it and act like an obvious fact is not a fact. They're just like, no, I'm just gonna decide to say that I'm not, because I get to choose. My heart is telling me that I'm defending somebody's gentle, sweet abuela that has just been kidnapped off the street right after she was done playing with her grandchild and just taken into the back of a van, beat up, and thrown into a dark cell somewhere. That's what they think they're defending and they're stopping. Complete delusion, complete lunacy, completely retarded. And when she gives him the real facts about who he's really defending and who he's really protecting, he doesn't care. Nope, I'm not even going to listen to it. I don't want to know what reality is. I don't want to know what's really going on here. It makes me feel really good inside to pretend that I'm this noble person who is standing up for all these people and fighting for them, fighting for their lives, fighting to save them. I'm a savior, damn it. I am saving these people. That's what he wants to be. That's what he wants to think of himself as being. He's never done anything in life. He's never accomplished anything. He's never done a difficult task. He's never built any kind of self-esteem or confidence or anything. Instead, he's trying to use this as his way of doing that and becoming like a good, noble person. Because look, I'm defending the weak and the poor and the widows. I'm standing up for them, all the while not being aware that that's not at all what's happening here. And he doesn't want to know that, because then it would burst his little fantasy cosplaying that he's got going on. He doesn't want to know the truth. He doesn't want to know the facts. He doesn't want to know reality. He wants to live in a fantasy world. And all these protesters want to live in this fantasy world where they're some kind of hero. That's what they think they are. They think that they're the heroes to these people. They're heroes to these people who are being oppressed by the big, mean, institution, who are trampling on the rights of just the small guy who didn't do anything wrong, who's just the nicest, most law-abiding person. And you've got the evil, Nazis coming in there and just punching people and shooting people and kidnapping people randomly for no reason. And he's there to stop it. And he can't believe that everybody doesn't agree with him, that we should be stopping that. Well, the reason that no one agrees with that is because that isn't what's happening. That's just a figment of your imagination that you made up in your brain so that you could insert yourself into the story to be the hero. It's their mythology. It's a purely made up mythological world that they get to feel good about themselves for, as they imagine themselves saving these people. It's almost no different than any kind of religious mythology. And if you give them the facts and you tell them what's really going on and you try to enlighten them to reality, they will hate you for it. They'll fight you. They'll get emotionally worked up because you're taking their baby away. This is the thing that makes me feel special. This is the thing that makes me feel like a good person, is that I'm the hero in this story that I made up. So don't take that away from me, because then I'll feel like shit and like I'm not doing anything and I'm not accomplishing anything with my life. So I need this story so that I can feel good about myself and my self-esteem can be boosted, even though it's all a facade. It's all bullshit. That's what's going on with a lot of these protesters. And the Democrat leaders are happy to let them live in this fantasy world, and they're happy to fan the flames of the mythology and to boost these people's egos and tell them that they're great people who are out there really standing up for the little guy who's being trampled. And you're going to go in there, swoop in there. You're going to stop the big Nazis from coming in here because we're good people. We're the freedom fighters. We're here to defend. We're here to be saviors. We're here to be heroes. But in the real world, this guy's just a total loser. Just a total loser. But that's too much of a burden to bear. Reality is too weighty, too heavy. So I need something to escape reality. I need a fantasy in which I'm like the most noble, most amazing, most heroic and virtuous person. And so they concoct this whole structure. They concoct this whole thing in their minds. And they help build it with other people. And they all are playing the hero in their own little mythological world of protecting grandma from the big bad ICE officers. Because if they were inserted into the actual real story of you're actually the bad guy, you're partnering with the villains, and you're trying to stop the good guys from catching the villains and protecting the innocent people that the villains are going to harm, you don't want to see yourself in that story. That's really the story that you're in. You're supporting rapists. You're trying to protect rapists. You're trying to protect murderers. You're not protecting innocent people. You're not saving anybody. It's fucking crazy.
In Minnesota by wanting to abolish ICE and get them out of
I'm
here.
not defending those fucking pedophiles. If you're trying...
Right, see? In my fantasy world, in reality, that is what he's doing. That's where we live. That's where us normal people live. We live out here in reality, where we have to pay our bills and we have to do all the normal people things. This guy doesn't. So he just is like, well, you obviously don't understand the whole world that I've concocted in my brain, and that's the world I live in. I don't live in a world where I'm protecting pedophiles. I don't live in a world where I'm protecting murderers. So you must be wrong, even though in reality, that's exactly what he's doing. But no, that can't be the case, because in my story, I'm not protecting those people. I don't like those people, and I want those people deported, even though I'm trying to stop the operations that get those people deported. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. I'm hero. I'm a savior.
If you're trying to argue that we need to get rid of these people, that these are fucking pedophiles, then get the fucking pedophiles in the White House out now.
Yeah, okay. It's weird that you were against certain pedophiles, but not these ones. But I appreciate your time. If you calm down at all and you want to have a further discussion, you can come find me. But your impulse...
I'll have a further conversation when you actually get a brain.
Yeah. All right. That's fine. Low impulse control.
Oh, she's so good at baiting these people. It's so funny. And she always got little snappy comebacks like that. It's really, really hilarious. So, okay. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share, comment on the videos. Okay. I'll be doing a few lives a week, hopefully, 3-4 days a week. So catch me around 11 a.m. and we'll keep you updated on what's going on. So I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe and join me tomorrow.